I'm loving self-publishing. Over the last 3 years, since 2001, the summer of 2001, I've done 4 books. I've got another one on the way, and I'm hoping I'll be up to my 6th by the end of this year. And I'm really fortunate that I have a good friend and colleague who is, I think, one of the most knowledgeable and generous people when it comes to providing great information and strategies for self-publishing. But the average person, when they get started, is so overwhelmed by all you have to do to publish the book. And I'm not thinking even about the writing and editing, which can be taxing enough, but it's all the other things that go into publishing a book, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But I want to bring on our guest. He's a best-selling author, an award-winning author. He's got more than 50 books to his name, including the Amazon Self-Publisher. He's got the How to Write a Book in 48 Hours, and he's got a whole new series that he's working on and a new book. He's also a fantastic YouTuber. His main channel has nearly 100,000 subs. He's got a podcast that's popular and has its own YouTube channel that is continuing to grow. And he's a terrific live streamer, knows all about how to handle a broadcast, how to go live, how to engage community. And he's a good friend, and he's a very talented communicator. And so let's bring him on. It's Dale L. Roberts from Self-Publishing with Dale. Dale, it's great to see you.
Dude, you know what? Let's just call it quits. That intro was it was far beyond what I feel like I deserve. But yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, man. It's always a joy to be here on your show.
Well, it's always great to have you back. It's always a good time talking with you. And unfortunately, not everybody has your number, your ability to get a hold of you in a pinch when they're doing this. And I think your newest book, Self-Publishing for New Authors, is something that every new author, not just first-time authors, there you go, you've seen it as well, should have on their desk, in their bookcase, by their bed, because this is really the foundation of everything that you're going to need to know when it comes to self-publishing. You go through all the steps, you go through all the resources, you don't make it too complicated. It's a fabulous book. Tell us a little bit about the series that you're doing and where this book fits into the bigger picture of what's coming next from Dale L. Roberts.
You know, it's been a number of years now that I've been in the educational space for self-publishing via YouTube. That's a whole story in and of itself. I didn't officially publish any books about self-publishing until about 4 years ago. Next month it will be, and it went really, really well. Award-winning series, racked up a bunch of accolades with that one. It was fantastic. But the problem is YouTube gets in the way, dang it. So in the background, I was actually stockpiling a bunch of books. I was writing those things. I think I did 2 or 3 within the NaNoWriMo in 2021, late 2021. And then I started doing more, and then I did more, and I did more. And then eventually I'm looking at this whole stockpile of stuff, and I literally have a blueprint for everything you could possibly need to know within the world of self-publishing. And so that's what I want to do, is take people from point A, the brand new beginning author, all the way to point Z. So that way, anybody, whatever entry point that they're at, they can be able to just dive right in. So let's say you're not a new author. Maybe you don't need to jump into the new authors. Well, the next book, which is going to be due out August 15th, is going to be Advanced Self-Publishing for Authors. So someone like a Ross Brand, who has done quite a few books, could be able to pick that up and learn something brand new. Now, not to say that you won't learn something new in self-publishing for new authors, but it will build on that knowledge. And so that was my big vision. And the other thing was I discovered an issue with how I was marketing myself. It was goofy. I was putting Amazon's name on it, and it was for search engine optimization purposes. I was calling it the Amazon Self-Publisher series. But the problem is with advertising, if you're using Amazon advertising, you can't do video ads with their name. Like they're like, no, you can't. They would reject me. And here's the thing, my strong suit is videos. Like that is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so when I found that I was handcuffed on that one, that's when it hit a breaking point. And I go, what am I thinking here? Why don't I just name the series the exact same thing I named my YouTube channel a number of years ago? So that really helps in search engine optimization. So yeah, it's been a fun process, but I'm going to tell you this, don't sit on 8 books. It's hard.
So what is the process of writing all these books so that you can have them ready to go month by month by month? Is it one at a time? Is it write them all first and then plan the launches? Or where are you in the process right now in terms of the content? And then we'll get into more of the sales side and the marketing side.
Yeah. So in a perfect world, I would say it's best to just focus on one book at a time, get the first draft done, go through 3 to 4 rounds of edits, get it to a final draft, get it formatted, get the book cover, all that stuff, and then go for the publishing. But I'm a crazy person, and I kind of know this whole
and you've
business.
Done a few books already. You've done
right,
50
exactly
plus books, right?
So right now, as it stands, I have the final draft of book 3 of all 8 books. Now, the following 5 books still need to go through their full rounds of edits yet. But I anticipate here relatively soon, I should have book 4 in my hands within the next week or two. It just depends a lot on my editor. And we have such a relationship that we kind of just know each other well enough that, you know, I'll be able to get that right in my hands. I'll have it done, turned around within a day or two, send it back to her. She'll spit it back to me. So it's a very good ironed out process. But love me some Jeannie DeVita. Jeannie DeVita, fantastic editor. I tell people all the time, if you get the, you know, discretionary expense, work with Jeannie. She is so good. She's worked with indie authors and she's worked with traditional publishing authors. Not to mention, I don't know if I've told you this before, she's also done a lot of ghostwriting for trad pub brands as well.
You know, one of the things that stands out is a lot of self-publishing nonfiction books can be very dry. They can be like, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Thank you for reading this book. Your ability to tell stories and to bring some of yourself in and some humor in and just make nonfiction interesting, is that just a natural gift you have, or is there skills that you've developed over time that have enabled your books, which might seem like, okay, this is going to be a dry read, but I need to do it so I know how to get my book on Amazon and sell it, turns out to be a really fun and interesting read, even if by now I know some of the fundamentals. How did you get to be such a really good writer for nonfiction, which is almost an oxymoron in and of itself, right?
Yeah, I appreciate the kudos on that one. It's very deliberate, and there are some times where I'll stare at a blank screen for a while because I know the information, I know what I want to convey, but I know with a lot of my contemporaries, I've read dozens of books about self-publishing, dozens, probably more than anybody probably should ever do. And I still read stuff about basics and things like that because I want to see how it's structured. And that's the problem, is you're right, it's dry. You have to bring yourself, you know, a loaded friggin', you know, carafe full of coffee in order to kind of get through it. You're like, okay, well, let's see about getting through this. And that's the thing, is I'm passionate about this business. I really love this business. And I think that if I can't communicate it in a way that keeps people's attention, then what's the point? I'm wasting everybody's time. They can just Google the information up. Whereas I want to get it to where I can tell a story that gets it to where it really anchors that point down and my readers can understand it on a more visceral level. Like they'll go, oh, I remember that story where Adele was talking about XYZ. Oh yeah, there we go. So I think I heard it a long time ago when I was in the MLM business and the multi-level marketing. And they said that facts tell, stories sell. That was one of the things they're like, stop reading all of the information on the supplement package. I want you to tell a story about that supplement, because that's what people are going to be invested in, not how many branch chain amino acids there are or how many freaking calories there are. They're like, you want to tell a story because that's going to sell it so much better. And a good friend of mine, Julie Broad of the channel Book Launchers, also, I almost feel like she pays really close attention to a lot of my content, and her big thing is hashtag no boring books. So
Right.
I almost feel judged sometimes before I even put pen to paper, because I know that she's going to come in and go, what's this boring stuff you're giving me? Like, what gives? And I think where I really shine is going to be on book 4, which is networking for authors. And networking is so important in business. And with networking for authors, I had a story for every single point that I had, because networking is overwhelming. It sometimes feels like it's a chore. It sometimes is, for someone who's introverted, it can be very anxiety inducing. So my thought was, okay,
You're
I
not
can
you're
get,
not introverted, are you?
I oddly enough, a lot of
You
people don't
are.
know this, but I am very, very much introverted. They call me an ambivert, if you will, but
Mhm.
I will get out and I will do the necessary things I need to do, because I know that in order to succeed in my business, I need to not just hide behind my keyboard and back inside a corner. There have been a number of times, I think you and I have crossed paths at conferences before, and you'll see me typically networking and such, but you've missed some of the times where I've gone to some conferences and I haven't said a word to anybody. Like, I went to 20 Books Vegas a couple of years ago, and I talked to a handful of people, but for the most part, I just blended into the background because that's just my way. I just get overwhelmed and such. But yeah, the networking for authors, though, was somewhere that I just really got into telling stories, because I feel like there's so much that a lot of authors and even business owners that are missing out there from doing networking. Because, man, how many people have you and I introduced each other to
Right.
over the years? I mean, we have grown both of our networks together from just introducing each other back and forth. Heck, you already just introduced me to a couple other people recently. So I'm just elated on something like that. But all that to say this, that it is something that if you're sitting down to write your nonfiction book, yes, the facts are important. Get them in there, but try to figure out a way that can put your thumbprint on it, that makes it uniquely you and gets it to where people can be a lot more invested, because they're going to be less invested if you're just kind of going, okay, you might as well have words like that because
Right.
it's freaking boring, man.
And it's the same way that you talk in your videos, I think, especially in your live
Yes.
streams and when you're answering questions and stuff. And I think that's what helped me pick up the essentials of the strategy that you present for, getting a bestseller, making sales in the early part, having a successful launch, is the stories kind of made it all fit together. It's like, okay, I need to do this, then I need to do that. Oh yeah, that's where Dale went off the rails when he was doing his third book. So I'm not going to do that thing. So, let's talk a little bit about the new book. It's fantastic. If you're a new author that you're getting ready to publish, you're thinking about publishing your first book, what are the main things you need to focus on? What get beyond the noise, and like, what are the key fundamentals that every new author should be aware of if they're going to succeed publishing on Amazon and some of the other major platforms?
It all starts with the fundamentals and the basics. It's, first of all, doing your market research. Make sure there's demand. If you're just doing this to scratch an itch because it's a hobby, then disregard anything that I would give you advice, because I
Right.
truly believe there are some people out there that view this as a hobby, and I don't want to take away from that love. I don't want you to feel like you're less than because you're doing it as a hobby. But if you're looking at trying to make a substantial impact with your books, you need to do the market research in advance. Figure out, is there a demand? Do I have an audience for this? That's the most important thing. Now, the second most important thing is the first draft. I think there's so many people that have come to me over the years that are so excited. They tell me about their story, or they tell me about the book and the concept that they have. And, oh, it's unique. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Okay, did you write anything yet? No. I'm just, it's all up here. That's great. But until we get some Neuralink implants in here that's going to take that book from within your head and put it into an actual, materialize it, that just doesn't work. So that's going to be the most daunting task I think a lot of aspiring authors and would-be authors run into, is getting that first draft done. And I can say that from experience, at least for myself, one of the biggest hangups and one of the reasons why I procrastinate is I have this perfect image in my head of how this book is going to turn out. And so sometimes when I sit down, I put a lot of pressure on myself to make it as perfect as it is in my head. And I'm going to guarantee you, it will never be exactly as you had it in your head. It won't, because by the time it goes through numerous rounds of edits, it's going to be something different, if not better. So you have to give yourself a little bit of leeway to write a crappy book. Like literally just sit down and write a crappy book. You're not going to publish it right away. That's okay. And you and possibly only the editor will ever know how crappy it is. And that is the thing, is I give you 100% permission. This is something I said inside this book. Do hammer garbage straight up. Just sit down, hammer that stuff out. It doesn't matter how crappy you might think it is, because I guarantee you it is way better to have crappy material that you can edit than a blank page, because you can't edit a blank page. And that's what it really comes down to, is get the fundamentals of market research and get that first draft. That first draft is just the hardest, biggest hurdle that you're going to run into. And then if you find a good editor, you should be able to get a good flow and it'll get pumped out relatively quickly. Just depends on the editor that you're working with. So for instance, with Genie, it typically takes about a month in total to get a book fully edited and ready to go. We could probably do it quicker, I'm sure, but I never like, hey, where's my book? But that is the biggest thing. Market research, first draft. Get that first draft done. And whatever you do, don't sit on that first draft too long, because otherwise you're going to end up with like 7 books on top of that one.
What is the role of an editor?
The editor, a lot of people get this confused. They believe that an editor is there to change how you sound. They're trying to change your voice. A terrible editor will do that. Bad editors will change your voice. Bad editors are going to try to make substantial changes that it just isn't you. A great editor is only going to enhance and refine what you have. They're going to bring out your best voice, so that way whatever lands in the market is the best version of you there is. And editors vary on their roles and what they do, because there are a few different ones, and I'm just going to tell you the 3 that I typically use. I do developmental editing, which is just an overview, an overhead view of what you're doing. And if the structure is proper, if it's flowing just as it should be, is it missing any elements? Is anything out of alignment? So it's more of an overhead view. Then you go into copy editing, where you're going in and figuring out, okay, line by line, is everything reading as it should? Is this sentence as tight as it should be? And then last but not least is proofreading, which is going through, it's almost like having like it's like putting a nice wax on your car. You know,
That's
you're getting it
where the comma doesn't go here. You've got, a double word here, right? That's where you're catching all those errors that, when you were reading for comprehension, understanding, flow, you might have skipped over it when you're reading at a faster pace. Does the same person handle all 3 things,
if you can,
or do you tend to, one person for the development and another person for the proofreading?
I know very few authors that do this right now, and they will do separate sometimes, because they feel like having that separate set of eyes is going to identify some mistakes, and there is validity in that. I truly believe that is a great way to go. But for me, I use just one, and Jeannie just knows. She's been in the business. I mean, she's an instructor at UCLA and does, works with editors and such, trains them up. And so that's why I typically go with just her. But there are some people that separate it out. Now, what I would recommend is, if you're looking for an extra set of eyes, get a beta reading team. This would be I'd say 2, no more than 3 readers that are familiar with your niche and will be willing to go in and give you unbridled, feedback, like just completely unfiltered. That's the word I'm looking for here. You want unfiltered feedback from this person. So that way they're identifying, sure, the typos, mistakes, and things like that, but they'll also identify developmental issues of like, okay, this doesn't work. You're missing something here. They bring in a different touch to things. Now, I made the mistake of, I think, this first book in the series, I put in like 24 beta readers, and it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. Less is more. Find yourself a good 1 to 3 readers, and those people, they will be your volunteer army. They're going to be the ones that will help you out and pick out any type of issues that you have and get it to where you do have another set of eyes. Now, I lucked out with self-publishing for new authors in that Jeannie actually was training, I think, 2 different editors over at UCLA. So they actually used this book as part of their assignment. And so
Nice.
they went through, they tore it apart and such. Then Jeannie would go through and correct all their corrections. So that way it was good. I had 3 sets of eyes on this first book.
Did you saw their
all
first
of the notes? Yep.
Oh, wow.
They because it was in Microsoft Word, so it'd show who the person was that would leave the comment or the correction. So I was able to kind of break it out. But yeah, and it also happened with book 2. I think I ended up having Jeannie and another editor, but I think on book 3 was where it was just strictly Jeannie. So I'm crossing my fingers. Hopefully Jeannie will have some more students for these upcoming books, because it's brutal. I hate seeing all the red, the red marks on my manuscript, but I also feel reassured when I see those red marks, because it just means that it's only going to get better. I'm like, okay, this is simple. I can go through, and it's just going through and looking at each one of those problems, trying to commit that to memory, like, okay, I messed up here and here's why. So then I'm able to go through future publications and not have that same issue and not have them banging their heads against the wall because I keep making the same mistake. Like, for instance, Jeannie busted me on in due time for whatever reason. There was a dozen times, literally 12 times, that I said it throughout one book, in due time. She was like, yeah, you're allowed one time that you're allowed to say that in your book. And I was like, okay.
So, okay, we've got the manuscript written. We've done the editing part. Now it's on to getting the book ready to publish, and then publishing. What are the biggest mistakes that new authors make that they could just stop doing now? And then they can read your book and learn how to do it the right way. Well, what are the biggest mistakes you're seeing out there when it comes to, your cover, your formatting, how you're doing your keywords, and your all the general things that you need to do on Amazon, your metadata and all that, and then your marketing and promotion. There's got to be a few ones that you just see over and over again that you just like beat your head into the wall. It's like, boy, if I could just get my hands on this person, I could straighten them out and save them from a lot of danger.
I think the biggest issue, even before going into the marketing phase of things, publishing and marketing, is some folks don't hire an editor. And I totally understand. If you don't have the discretionary expense, that's fine. But you need to at least get an outside set of eyes, even if it is reaching out to my buddy Ross Brand. Hey, Ross, could you look over this manuscript? Send me any kind of corrections. Get somebody outside of yourself, because you are super biased and you're going to miss out on very glaring issues. And I will tell you, even with the extra set of eyes, you're still going to have some stuff that ekes through. Sometimes the weirdest typos they're like cockroaches, man. Like they will last through a nuclear holocaust in like 6 edits. You're kind of going, what the heck? How did this make it through? But yeah, that would be getting editors. Now, when it comes to the next thing, I think you identified a couple of really big sticking points, is the cover design. There's a good reason why people say people judge a book by its cover, because they do. And there has been, like, every now and then I get someone who's just like snarky and like, actually, let me give you a smackly for that one there. Actually, I don't look at the covers. I'm just interested in the book. Yeah, that's great for you. But about 99.9% of the market out there that doesn't know who you are or the book that you've written, they're going to judge it by that cover. So that way, if it is garbage, they're not going to buy it. It's just, it's a fact.
If they search a topic on Amazon, what is going to stand out from the entire mess of books pages and pages and rows and columns and
Yep.
bestsellers and new releases that all cover the same topic. How do I decide this one is one that I'll look under the hood and decide if I want to buy or not, right? And that's
Exactly.
the cover. It comes down to the cover and the title, right? It's a
Yep.
lot like a YouTube video.
Yeah,
Your
it is
thumbnail
very
and
much.
your title is what makes you pick one video over another a lot of times.
Yep. And the same is true with books. And so what I would say is during your market research, your initial, researching of your niche is pay attention to the covers that are selling right now. Selling right now. Don't think about these perennial sellers that are going to forever be, selling things like Napoleon Hill, for crying out loud. They can throw anything in that one. It's Think and Grow Rich. You can have 50,000 different iterations of that.
Right.
Pay attention to what is selling right now. Go into a Barnes and Noble or any store. If you're in Canada, it could probably be, I don't know, Indigo, any number of those things. Just take the time to really research and look at those covers. If you can afford it, I would recommend hiring out a cover designer. However, if you are pretty good at graphic design, so like for instance, Ross is pretty good. He sent me a cover design that he did himself, and I'm like, that actually is not bad, man. I'm like, yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Got to give a lot of credit to my co-author, Kevin Colby.
That's good. Yeah, having two minds working together. Big shout out to Kevin too, by the way.
He was on the computer, and I was like, what if we move this thing here? What if we change that color to that? But yeah, I mean, but it's hard. And even when you do it yourself, you're still... Remember my very first book, I had designed like 2 or 3 different covers over the course of a month, staying up all night. And you were like, hey, this is pretty good. You could probably go ahead and, like, there was one of them, you're like, you could go ahead and publish this. But it didn't look like this.
Yeah.
It's like, you only have to see it from a pro for a minute, and then you go, yeah, I can't compete with that. That said, we may go with our own design for this next book that I'm doing. But in general, I would not advise most people to do their own cover. And I think also after you've done several books and you've reviewed a lot of books and stuff, you at least start to get a sense of like where things go and, not to use too many images and too much... self-promotion and things, which, a lot of people, the book is like a business card, and they think, gee, if I just put my face on it and make my name really big,
Yeah. Which is fine, I'm sure,
your family's going to buy it either way, but everybody else...
Mom's going to put it on the fridge.
is kind of interested in what the topic is.
Yeah, there are exceptions to the rule that there are some folks out there that can put together a good design, but you need to also think to yourself, are there other aspects of my business that I'm stronger at and that I could focus on? If you're finding yourself cash strapped, what I would recommend is pump the brakes, take your time, save up enough money to hire a designer. But I'm going to tell you that, like, for instance, I shared with you, Get Covers, $10 for an ebook cover design. Are you kidding me? Right. It's dirt freaking cheap. I mean, you're starting at a bargain basement price. So that right there is going to save you hours, if not a month, of doing numerous iterations. Let somebody else do it that's a pro, that will analyze the market, that will be able to honor any of the elements that you're requesting of them, and putting it in a way that makes sense that the market's going to buy that. But yeah, the book cover design is next, or is the first thing you need to pay attention to. The next thing is your book description. Your book description is your marketing copy. You need to have that dialed in. It needs to get it to where, again, you're not just like, here's what the book is about. You're going to be like, oh, excuse me, I fell asleep partway through your book description because it's boring as hell. We also need to address the fact that we're in a generation of folks that are doing this. Scroll, 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 scroll. You can't be putting one giant block of text up there about your book. You need to break that up in a way that is appealing to the eyes and makes it simple. Because if you're just feeding them little bite-sized pieces, they're more likely to understand what it is at a glance versus someone that sees a giant paragraph and goes, I'm not reading that, bye. They're going to the very next thing. So get it to where your marketing copy is really starting to pop out, and get it to where people know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, your book is the one that they want to buy. And I got to tell you that there are a lot of tools out there right now that will help you with book descriptions. And I don't know how, hot of a topic this is through your platform, through your audience here, but artificial intelligence, AI is great at helping you dial in your book descriptions. I actually use that for these first 3 inside this series. I use artificial intelligence. What I did was I took ChatGPT, free, by the way. I dropped in all the previous book descriptions. I said, study this. I want you to see the format. I want you to see the words that I'm using. I want to honor this format. And then I'm going to give you the title of my book. I want to give you the keywords I want to use. And I'm going to give you the table of contents so you know exactly what's going on. I was like, can you do this? AI was like, yeah, I got you. So I fired it off. And I got to tell you, it probably took 1, maybe 2 variations before I finally had it all settled in. But it came back with some stellar copy. And so far, I'm selling a pretty good amount of books. So I think that we're doing all right with the book description. So it's just something
it's fabulous. I mean, for self-publishing for new authors, we're talking with Dale L. Roberts from Self-Publishing with Dale, and his new book is Self-Publishing for New Authors. When I flip the book over and I read, you've dreamed of becoming an author, and now you've written your first book, but how do you get it published? I'm intrigued now. I mean, that is really good. Was that AI, or was that you coming in and rescuing AI, where you got the bulk from AI, but you're like, oh, I better put my own touch on that first sentence? But that is really strong.
Thank you. Actually, it is, I would say 90% AI. To be honest, I really wish I could say I've tweaked a couple of words here and there, because every now and then, for whatever reason, AI gives you a bunch of flowery prose. Like they're just like using some words like no one would ever use in real life. You're like, what are you doing? Like, who says that? Like, so right. I had to go in and just tweak a couple of elements. And then a couple times it would give me very lengthy sentences. And I wanted to kind of make them just a little bit shorter. But for the most part, yeah, it came back like that.
It's a skill in and of itself, writing those descriptions. You can be a terrific writer, and you can write 250 wonderful pages, and then you look at the back, or you know, what am I going to put on the back? What am I going to put on my sales page? And you think about doing your own bio, and those are like tougher than writing the book to me.
So true. It is.
Those are the 3 toughest paragraphs I'll ever write, are the description and the bio.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel that on a whole different level. I know that at one point I actually hired a few people on Fiverr to do my bios for me. But I have since actually, what I did was I took all of my previous bios and again, fed it to ChatGPT. It spit out exactly what I was looking for. And I was like, boom, done. And by the way, if you didn't happen to notice, you go on to any of the major retailers that this is available on. That's my shameless self-plug here. Everybody's gonna be like, this is all about his book. Yeah, of course it's about my book. But you'll notice actually the book description, the blurb on the back cover is different than what you're going to see on the different websites. So
I was going to ask you about that. How important is it to tailor what's on the back of the book, to change that up for your main Amazon description or your main Barnes and Noble or any other bookseller?
To me, my thought process is this: is when someone has a book in their hands versus when someone is online or scrolling through their phone, that's a different customer mindset. So when someone has my physical book in their hands and they're looking at this, they don't need to have this detailed marketing copy that I've done on the websites. Mm-hmm. They just need to have something really brief. And the other thing is too, is when you are filing or registering your international standard book number, the ISBN for your book, they need to have a brief paragraph. And I can't remember how many characters it's limited to, but if you try to take the broken up marketing copy that you would do on a website, it takes and it crams it into one paragraph. So it looks really goofy. And that's not such a big deal, since not too many people are going to access the ISBN versus like small bookstores and indie bookstores, or a Barnes and Noble is going to see that attached to the ISBN. But it is still a fraction amount of people that you don't want to take that for granted. And you also look at different websites. So for instance, Ingram Spark needs a short blurb. So that actually has to be, I think, like almost 2 sentences long. So I was able to take that and cut it down to that. But also when you're running any type of marketing or promotional campaigns through some different websites, they don't want this long, detailed, broke up marketing copy. They just want, hey, could you just tell us what it is in one paragraph? Boom. And I went ahead and got that. And again, that was an instance of anytime I go into ChatGPT, I've got a whole thread put together with the instructions. So when I ask for a new book, it gives me the long description, and then it gives me the short description, and then it highlights all the keywords that they use in each one of those, which, by the way, game changer. Having those keywords thrown in there, because you could sit here and try to do this.
That sounds like a tool you could sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Or create your own GPT or whatever.
There you go.
Self-publishing GPT or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing what you can do. Okay, so real quick, we'll talk Amazon because that's the first place people tend to go for selling their first book. Give me a few tips, that few takeaways where people should start to become knowledgeable about what to do on Amazon. So that they start looking in the right areas, because there's a lot to a successful strategy on Amazon, and much of it, I think, you naturally wouldn't think of if you didn't have an ally, a friend, a great book like Self-Publishing for New Authors on your desk.
Yeah. What I would say is going to be that if you're looking to publish on Amazon, obviously, and I'm going to have to be very anecdotal. I would have to actually look up some sources on this one, but I think the last I saw, they control about 60 to 70% of online publication profits so far. So this means that putting your book on Amazon is going to do you great favors. Not having it on there is going to be a disservice to you. Now, if you're anti-Amazon, don't put it on there. That's fine. Just understand that you're really missing out on a huge market that you can leverage. Now, the best path to getting your book on Amazon is going to be Kindle Direct Publishing. Like, hands down, it's going to get you the best royalties. It's going to give you the best control for your metadata. It's the direct pipeline, and you won't have any issues with going through them, say, versus if you were to use another distributor like Ingram Spark or Drafted Digital. Big shout out to Drafted Digital, by the way. Those ones, they will distribute to Amazon, but the problem is, first of all, they're going to take their pound of flesh. Mm-hmm. They're going to take a percentage of your profits that are going to come through there before you get it. Whereas opposed to Kindle Direct Publishing, just one middleman, just Kindle Direct Publishing. So they're just going to take their cut. Whereas Ingram Spark, Drafted Digital, Amazon's going to take their cut. Ingram Spark and Drafted Digital is going to take their cut, and then you finally get your cut. And the other issue that runs into is going to be the out of stock option when it comes to print books. For whatever reason, Amazon has this weird hang up with anybody that's not KDP. They will put an out of stock button over on your landing page. So if you're running Amazon ads through something like that, it will shut off that ad because there's no books to send people to. And if it's out of stock, you're screwed. And the problem is, if you go and approach each of these companies, they will say, oh, Amazon's at fault. And Amazon will go, oh, no, Ingram Spark is at fault. And it's just a circular thing where they just keep saying. So that's why I say
use KDP for getting your book on Amazon, and then use something like Drafted Digital to get the ebook in all the other sellers, but not for putting it on Amazon. Then use Ingram to get your paperback, for example, in all the other booksellers, but let the paperbacks that Amazon's selling, let them do their print on demand thing through KDP.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people want to know, and this is a very popular question, so I'm sure someone's going to ask this, is, can't I use all of those avenues? Absolutely. You just need to be aware that there's some overlap. So for instance, Ingram Spark and Drafted Digital both use the same print distribution through Ingram Book Group. So you'd want to use Ingram Spark or Drafted Digital, not both, for print distribution. However, if you're looking at a little bit more of the selectability of being able to choose one avenue and not another, Drafted Digital is going to be your better choice. But we're starting to go into the weeds of something for more advanced authors. So I recommend, if you're focused on Amazon, go with Amazon KDP first, and then look at those other distribution options. And that's going to be the biggest thing. So the next thing is, you need to make sure that your keywords are dialed in, meaning that search engine optimize your books with the proper keywords. So what are the keywords that are related to your book? Don't just think about Well, this is a profitable keyword. I'm going to go ahead and attach it to it. Throw that out the window. Think about what your ideal reader is going to be searching for. What are they going to be searching for? And will your book be brought up with it? Those are the keywords you want to associate with it. Now, keywords are so overwhelming. That's why I wrote an entire book about it. So rather than us talking for the next 2 hours about keywords, I figured probably the next best option is talking about reviews. Reviews are the lifeblood of your success on Amazon. In fact, in the Amazon advertising certification course, I feel like someone pulls a string out my rear end for me to go ahead and say this every time. 91% of customers on Amazon will look at the reviews before making a purchase. This is site-wide. I had some people, they're like, oh, but that doesn't reflect books alone. Okay, let's just say, for instance, if books alone was a lot lower. It can't be too much lower if everything averages out to 91 freaking percent. So this means that you need to get those reviews and ratings going as soon as it's published. And it always starts with a good advanced reader copy team. An advanced reader copy team are a bunch of people. They're kind of like your street team. You give them a free copy of your book before the thing publishes, and you say, hey, in exchange, I just need you to leave a review on launch day. When launch day comes, you notify them, they drop the reviews on there. And that is going to make a big difference. Now, how many do you need? Ideally, you want to get 15 reviews or more with an average rating of 3.5 stars or greater. Now, hopefully you're not, putting out your first draft hammered garbage. You probably have put out a good book that is very well edited and it is very professional. So you're probably going to see more than 3.5 stars. Now, if for some reason it goes below 3.5 stars, it's not the end of the world. Just go out, write a second edition, make it better. I ran into that issue. I wrote a book for seniors, and this was a number of years ago. Oh my gosh. I learned real quick. They did not like that book. And it was because the pictures were too small and the print was too small.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I spent 20 years in the healthcare industry working with seniors. And here I put out a book with the same size font and the same size pictures of somebody who doesn't have sight impairment. And that was goofy on my part. Thankfully, I fixed the problem. Those average ratings came back up, but I'll tell you what, it suffered. But all that to say this, get those reviews going and continually look for new reviews, because as you add more reviews, it's going to create some relevance in the algorithms of, oh, okay, there's some activity on this product page. So they're going to recommend more readers come there and try to get them to buy it. So get those reviews popping.
So reviews aren't just about social proof or recommendations for people who find your page. It actually helps you in the algorithm to have more reviews.
Yes, it's not quite as strong as it used to be, but it is still very strong because, again, you're looking at, 91% of customers looking at that review. But that algorithmic relevance adds up after a while, and customers will say the words, the keywords that you want associated with your book, and then that is indexed on your product page, making it more discoverable. So get those reviews rocking and rolling. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and pay someone to put fake reviews on your stuff. You need to get some legit reviews on there. And again, I've got an entire book on how to get reviews called Amazon Reviews for Books. But it is a rather simple process.
If you want 15 reviews, how big of an art team do you need to have to actually end up with 15 reviews? Because we know everybody that you send a copy to isn't going to end up putting a review on Amazon.
You said exactly what I was thinking too. That's the thing is I tell people the rule of thirds. 30% of your audience is actually going to leave a review. It's no offense to you. Life gets in the way. Someone didn't finish reading the book.
People sign up with good intentions. It's just you get busy, they get busy.
Yep. And here's the thing is, I've got this whole series of books right now, and they're going 1 month after the next, after the next, after the next. I'm going to allow some readers to get the second book if they haven't reviewed the first book just quite yet. That's okay. But then we go over into the third book and I see they haven't reviewed my first 2 books. Bye, you're out. You're not going to get any more free
You're
stuff.
you're not getting 10 free books.
No. Story Origin's fantastic for that. A great service for book
Is that
marketing.
the tool you'd recommend for anybody putting an art team together?
Absolutely. You can look into Story Origin or Book Funnel. Either one of those are fine. Book Sprout is another one that you can get advanced reader copies. And there's a more pricier option. I'm actually using them right now. It's called NetGalley. NetGalley it's huge pool of readers, but I'm going to tell you, they're very discerning readers. So if you are not coming with your A game, you're going to suffer. They will come in and they will absolutely just plunder you. And these are not paid, readers. These are readers that, are going to give you 100% brutal, honest truth. And I've seen some authors just get killed on NetGalley. This is the first year I've ever used NetGalley. So fingers crossed that we do just fine there.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the cool things in flipping through your book is I see you've got some relationships here with some of the top brands in the space. I'm seeing MyBlart, I'm seeing Dibley Create, Drafted Digital, Book Award Pro. Are these books sponsored? Is this a series where you've managed to open up another line of revenue?
I will tell you, yes, it is. Those are sponsored ad placements.
Wow.
And this was something I had thought about, I think, earlier this year. And I was like, let me get a sponsor for my book. Somebody that can get in there. And because, I've got plenty of sales. I've got the right audience. So if I find the right sponsors for the right audience, it just only makes sense. It's a match made in heaven. But I had a conversation with creator wizard Justin Moore. Not sure if you're familiar with Justin. Fantastic guy. You need to have him on your show if you ever had. He's just so dynamic. Love the guy to death. I go and DM him over on X. And this dude, as I tell him, I'm like, I'm excited. I'm like, oh, we could get a sponsor for our books. And see, now he's in the midst of writing his first book. And he goes, yeah, check this out. He gives me a link. Not even a week prior, this guy goes and already says, I'm going to be getting 3 to 5 sponsors for my book. And I'm also going to do some white label versions of this book. So like a CEO from a big company can always write a forward. And then he would just do an offset run of books that he would provide that company at X amount of dollars per book. And I was like, oh, here I'm feeling like chump change. And I'm like, that is brilliant. And so he and I were just kind of volleying back and forth some DMs. And I kind of came to the understanding of like, let's get 3 to 5 good sponsors. Now, here's the funny thing is, this is a month out from me publishing this first book. So this was less than a month ago that I got all this put together. And a lot of companies don't move that fast. Right. Thankfully, the dream companies that I wanted to work with, which was MyBlart for book cover design, which they're doing my cover design and my interior formatting already. I wanted to have them. They were my one that I wanted to start with.
Which looks great, by the way. And
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It really does. The branding is so strong.
Yeah, a lot of great help from MyBlart did on there, and as well as in my Discord community. I had a lot of authors that this was the 5th iteration of this cover design. It was the 5th. So MyBlart went through a war to get to this point. But the nice thing is I've got the current 2nd cover design iteration. It may need like a couple of tweaks, but other than that, though, it's literally ready for the market. But I'm sorry, I got derailed for a second there.
So you were going through your different sponsors.
I got the dream brands put together. So the really cool thing is my 5th dream brand, unfortunately, it was a budget concern. And as well, it's unexplored territory. A lot of companies aren't used to influencer marketing. And usually when they're heard of influencer marketing, they typically expect it in video form. So actually, the funny part is I had some companies that were like, nah, but we'd like to work with the video sponsorships. It was great because it got me some additional sponsorships.
I got a great channel for you, right? Self-publishing with Dale.
Exactly. So that right there I was able to, at least still continue this conversation, even though they're not in the book. But yeah, I ended up talking with 3 additional brands that were my dream brands. Drafted Digital, fantastic self-publishing company. It is run by indie authors for indie authors. I am the biggest fan of Drafted Digital, and I tell them all the time. Chris Austin, big shout out to the CEO, fantastic guy.
I use them. I use them for all my ebooks outside of Amazon, and then I use their books to read, which gives you a free universal book link. And it's really cool because it shows you all the different shops that they've put your book into, or you put your book into. And so if somebody doesn't like one place and wants to shop from another, you could send them that link and they can purchase their favorite format. So yeah, it's a great, the two of those together just fit like hand in glove, books to read and Drafted Digital.
Did you ever see their analytics that you can go in there? You can actually see where people clicked on and when they clicked on it. So that's the other thing that I really love, because then it'll show you where you should probably spend more of your time in marketing promotion. So if there's a lot of traffic that's being driven to Apple, then you know you're going to probably want to lean into that just a little bit more. But yeah, books to read is fantastic. But yeah, Drafted Digital was one. Let's see here. The other one was Book Award Pro. I love Book Award Pro. Oh. They have been a game changer for your business and mine. Like, we've racked up a lot of awards from them. And more recently, they actually have the review service that you can get reviews on your books too.
Yeah, I actually picked somebody off the list who I thought would be I just looked at what she had done and I said, you know what, I'm going to pay for a review. I want to get that serious review from somebody who's got a critical eye, and hopefully it's good and I can use it as an editorial review. But either way, it's just great to get that feedback from somebody objective who's not within my sphere of influence, right?
Absolutely.
Who's gonna somebody's not gonna tell me what I want to hear. The other cool thing is some of the book awards will write reviews as part of your book application. Or if you buy the book review, they'll enter you in their awards, like Literary Titan and Outstanding Creator Awards and stuff. So, that's great stuff for your Amazon editorial reviews.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Book Award Pro, fantastic. It's really good. And I mean, considering it's free to, more premium options, I think there's something for everybody, regardless of your budget. Now, a lot of people, unfortunately, get the misunderstanding that they think all Book Award Pro, or that book awards are all going to be free. And those, you have to remember that there are a judging panel. There are people that need to be compensated for their time, and they're not just going to sit here and read dozens and dozens of books and not be compensated. So that's why that some book award programs will charge money. A lot of them do. And same thing goes for some reviews and such. You don't want to pay for reviews that are going to be posted on Amazon, because that is against their policy, but you can be able to pay for those reviews in editorial sense, meaning that you can be able to post it on your cover inside your book. You can do it on your social media and your website, and you name it.
And they can post that to Goodreads, even though they won't post it to Amazon, which is interesting because Amazon owns Goodreads.
Amazon owns Goodreads. It's super confusing, right? They're like, you could do it here, but not over here. Yeah, it is something else. But yeah, the fourth sponsor ended up being Dibbly Create, and I know the founders of the company. I've actually been following them and working with them for the past year now. They actually launched their writing software called Dibbly Create, which actually has integration with AI. It's just been fantastic. It's opened my mind to a lot of different possibilities out there. But love me some Dibbly Create. Now, the other dream brand, unfortunately, again, I don't want to throw them under the bus and be like, they didn't have the budget. It was Ross. Ross told me he didn't have the budget.
Livestream Universe didn't pull through on this.
Yeah, it didn't pull through. Sorry, I fell through. No, totally joking here, folks. I did not approach Ross about that. But yeah, it really helped out. And I got to tell you, it was a substantial amount of money that it helped offset some of the costs for my marketing promotional stuff. So that means that I'm able to run Amazon ads.
Are they in for?
Yep. I got them to agree to all 8 books. I got them to agree to all 8 books. That was the problem, is I actually had some people that were like, oh, can I just do one book and see how it goes? And I was like, I'm sorry, it's either, all or nothing. I was just like, if you want to experiment, we can always go to videos, but I'm like, it's going to be all or nothing. Because I wanted to have it to where when someone reads book 1, they'll be able to see the same format going to book 8, that they'll be able to go see Drafted Digital. They know that I wholeheartedly stand behind it, as opposed to, I get a bunch of shotgun brands in there and it's not sticking to people's brains. I want these brands to be successful. I want them to see a return on their investment. For one, not just to get more sponsors for future books, but also so that way there's proof of concept and I could be able to charge a higher premium and bring in additional sponsors. Now, I'm not going to turn it into a Sears Roebuck catalog. All right. I'm going to limit it to no more than 5, because I think that's right there. If you were to do, just right now as it is, there's 4 advertisements. They only take 2 pages because it's front and back. And so that way people can kind of flip through it and not have it be too interruptive.
They're very tastefully done, I think. They really fit with the book. They don't stand out as like bam, bam, like like you put a billboard in the, in neon against black and white text or something. It looks like it's appropriate. It's a good fit for your genre, for your niche. I think it's brilliant. It's I think I've told you this before. There's so many different things in the self-publishing industry that I just had never thought of. And when you talk about the ads, that's just another one that never occurred to me. And did you come across many people who do that, or is this you kind of breaking new ground with this strategy?
I've seen trad pub books do it before. I know that a lot of the folks in the self-help space, I will typically see it in the back matter of their book. They will promote their backlog of books, but also they will recommend any of the other books that are within the whole umbrella of that trad pub brand. I'd seen that before,
because a lot of times you see people promoting their own products, right. In the self-help, they've got a vitamin or some concoction that'll make you feel better. That'll be at the end after you read through their book or whatever. But you often, I just don't remember seeing like something like this, and I think for your niche, it's perfect. These are top companies that really help a lot of people. So
it lends credibility to me as well, that having these brands here, because they do come with a great reputation in the business. So that's why I really want them to win big, because first of all, it makes me look good having them associated with me. And having Drafted Digital was always just kind of a pipe dream of mine. They had approached me about sponsorships on the videos, but because I do tend to be very critical of a lot of self-publishing companies and such like that, I had stopped working directly with any of self-publishing companies and doing sponsorships on my videos. But this one seemed better. This seemed like the right opportunity and the right time and the right place to go ahead and showcase them. And so I was just elated to be able to do that. So hopefully we'll be able to see something here relatively soon. But I will tell you this, that again, these sponsorships came at a pretty good, decent amount. I was rewarded handsomely. And here's the really fun part about it is in traditional publishing, a lot of people go after traditional publishing deals because they get paid in advance, meaning they're paid money ahead of the book launching in hopes that they will recoup those costs. This was almost like me giving myself an advance, that I was able to get money in ahead. And I'm literally just going to do a Mr. Beast on this one, where I'm not giving it away to everybody, but I'm going to reinvest it into my business. I'm going to take that and I'm putting it into ads for this book. And as this series grows out, it's going to get a lot more expensive. But thankfully, all that cost has been offset through this advance that I got.
Well, congratulations. It's a wonderful book, and so many great business opportunities, I'm sure, will continue to come out of this series. Self-Publishing for New Authors, a guide for writing and publishing your first book by Dale L. Roberts. Check out the YouTube description if you're watching the video or wherever you're watching it. If you're on the podcast, it'll be in the show notes. A link to get the book. In fact, we'll have a link to the Amazon Self-Publisher as well, and how to write a book in 48 hours. Just some of Dale's many books. He's also got books on health and fitness and diet and everything in that genre. He's a terrific author, a good friend, and of course, an amazing creator. And I certainly couldn't have had the success that I've had with self-publishing without your knowledge, your help, and all the resources that you've pointed me to as well. So I highly recommend Dale's books. And again, check the description wherever you're watching or listening. There'll be links to all the books. So next up is a book, Dale, for more advanced writers and authors. So there's going to be something for everybody, and many of the books in the series to come, dropping every month, will have topics that you can build on as you go along, different aspects of self-publishing, because there's so much to it. And of course, Dale's got the Self-Publishing with Dale podcast, where he drops all sorts of news and interviews and views on everything that's going on in this fascinating and constantly changing industry. So with all that long-winded denouement, since we're talking authors here, Dale, thanks so much for coming on. And again, congratulations on the new book and all your success with video and self-publishing and podcasting and everything else you're doing.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me on.